Hello, my name is Daniel Yuck. Thank you for watching today. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. In today's video, I want to talk about how I go about starting and completing a tattoo. I want to talk about some basic things that I am considering, some fundamentals that you may want to take with you and apply to your workflow on your end. Should you have any questions at any point throughout this video, I encourage you to drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this for you all. I do also have social medias under the same name as my YouTube. I have Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, all under Daniel Yuck. I would appreciate the support over there as well. With that being said, let's get right on into this. Before we dive on in, it's very important to note that this is not by any means the only way to tattoo. This is not by any means the correct way to tattoo. This is not by any means a wrong way to tattoo. This is just simply how I would go about completing a tattoo from beginning to end. To get my points across in this video, I'm going to be using this design right here. This is going to be a character from the Mario Brothers video game, and I'm going to go ahead and use this to kind of demonstrate my points as I talk about them. And again, I encourage you, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below. For this demonstration, I'm demonstrating with a small slab of real skin, fake skin. I will be leaving my Amazon affiliate links and other affiliate links for you in the description below, so you can check out the gear featured in this video. Here's an OG Produce tattoo machine. I forgot the name off the top. It is an unusual name, but I'm going to be demonstrating with this machine right here. So far, I'm loving this machine. And in terms of a needle, I'm going to use something that I am comfortable with, even all the way down to my machine. This is a machine that I'm more comfortable with because it is a pin style tattoo machine versus a coil. So you can kind of see at the very beginning, I'm getting a setup that is comfortable to me as the artist. I prefer pin style tattoo machines over coils. Coils just have a little bit more weight. It does seem a little bit more off to me, so therefore I just naturally gravitate towards pin style tattoo machines. I encourage you to pick what you are comfortable using on your end, as this is very important, and I don't feel like we should overlook it. Keep in mind, I'm at the very beginning, so I'm going to kind of thoroughly go through these steps here from beginning to end, all the way down to actually applying this tattoo here. So the next thing that I'm going to go ahead and pick out is a needle size that I'm not only comfortable using or semi-comfortable if we're just starting out, but I want to pick a needle that's accurate to the design at hand. So therefore, I feel like something around maybe a 9-round liner, somewhere in that ballpark would be good for this little design right here. This is going to be 110% subjective and to each their own. I encourage you to pick a line weight that you are comfortable using. And for those that are wondering, I'm also going to be using petroleum jelly to clean up my fake skin. I'm using simple Scotch shop wipes and Phantom tattoo gloves as well. For the needle, I'm going to go with an OG Produce standard 5-round shader for this entire design here to get my points across. I'm also going to be using dynamic black tattooing ink as well. I feel like it's very important to note that all of these choices that I'm making are best tailored to my wants and needs as the artist. This is where I feel most comfortable with my setup. If, let's say, for example, we're not comfortable using round shaders or more comfortable using round liners, I encourage you to select a round liner versus a round shader. You get the idea. If you prefer to use coils and you're more steady with a coil versus a pin style tattoo machine, you get the idea, go with a coil. So this part of the video is to encourage you as the artist to figure out your wants and needs as the artist and figure out where you perform the best with the gear that you're selecting. Moving on to the application here. So when it comes to the application, I am going to be doing lining, so therefore I'm going to be sitting at around maybe 7 to 8 volts. This is also something that, knowing our gear and being comfortable with our gear, this is where that comes in handy. So I'm about 7.57 volts here. I'm going to go ahead and begin the actual tattooing process. Notice how I haven't grabbed any ink and just started diving into it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get a little game plan going, and I do this each and every single tattoo that I do. I never just start into it. I kind of have a way that I'm going to go about it, and for reasons that I'm going to explain here. When I am tattooing, it doesn't matter if I'm going to be facing this way or if I'm on this side first, or if you get the idea, if I am on this side of the design. Wherever I am closest to, that's essentially where I'm going to begin. That's how it's always going to be. So for example, let's say the design is placed like this, and I'm working from this side over here, which is where I'm at right now. I'm going to begin with the area that's close to me. So I'm going to start maybe right here, right here, right here. You get the idea. The reason why I want to start with the area that's close to me is so that way as I start working my way up through the rest of the design, I don't really have to worry about losing the stencil. I don't have to worry about any of that. So therefore, the more that I apply the lines, the easier that it's going to be, and I guess the less stressful it's going to be as each and every line gets deposited along the way. So the idea is, it doesn't matter where you're starting, start with the area that's close to you for the stencil reasons or for stencil purposes. I'm also going to go ahead and get a little bit of ink now, as you can see here. And before I begin applying a line, I'm going to go ahead and place some ointment down in the area that I'm going to be tattooing and in the surrounding areas. Please keep in mind, this isn't how or the Bible or the only way to go about tattooing. This is just simply how I would approach applying this little guy right here. Now that I have my position figured out where I'm going to begin, I have my ointment there. I have to figure out where I'm most comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that, and I'm going to get probably right around here. So I feel most comfortable right here. This is where I feel comfortable to begin committing to the tattoo. So now that I found my comfortability, I'm going to begin to identify my point A and B. So my first A and B is going to be from right here. I'm going to kind of taper into this area and then bring it this way with a minor taper out. The reason why I'm going to start and end with little tapers is so that way I don't have any harsh starting and ending points. So allow me to demonstrate. I'm going to go ahead and taper in from right here. Actually, let me put a little bit of ointment in that area before we commit here. Let me make sure I am on frame. I'm comfortable. I'm going to identify my point A and B, and I'm going to commit. So from here, as you can see, we have a minor taper there, and then I'm going to bring this line around until I reach my B point with a little taper out. So that way, when I taper back in, we could avoid any harsh starting points and ending points. I'm going to go back and dip for more ink because ink flow is very, very important to any consistency. Your technique and everything could be correct. Your needle depth, your hand speed and voltage, all of that could be aligned. But if you don't have adequate ink flow, then you're still not going to deposit ink in a correct manner. I'm going to go ahead and kind of repeat this process essentially throughout. So I'm going to position myself. I'm going to go ahead and get comfortable, identify my point A and B, where I'm going to be starting and stopping. So from here, I'm going to do a mild taper in there, bring it around like so, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring it around and taper out as well. Right around here, or actually until I feel uncomfortable, which is right around there. I did feel uncomfortable here. As you can see, there is a minor little hiccup. However, I'm going to keep going and applying the tattoo in this manner, and I'm going to kind of just meet right there in the middle, and it should kind of clear that up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get comfortable, identify my point A and B, get a little stretch going on the skin before I commit, and then I'm going to bring it the rest of the way like so. There we go. And then from here, I'm going to kind of continue going this way right here. I'm not going for perfection by any means here. I never really shoot for perfection on any design or tattoo that I do. I always go for the best of my ability here. And even if I wanted, for example, if I need to double up, we as beginners can definitely do that. So let's say if I'm going to be tapering in right here to double up on this area, you just want to make sure that you've identified where you're going to start and end. You want to make sure that you're also going a little lighter than before. I don't really feel like there's a reason why we would need to, go in as hard as we did the first time when we're just touching up a line. I feel like softer is better, especially if we're going to be going over a couple of times. The same thing. I'm going to go ahead and go back in for some ink here, and I'm going to identify my point A, and then make my way on over to point B. So here is point A, and then B is over here. A minor taper in there, so we don't have any harsh start point. Bring this around. I'm going to bring this way with a little taper out, so that way we don't have any harsh ending points. Now, if you're noticing like inconsistencies with your line weight or needle depth or anything like that, pay attention to it and kind of see where it happened, and then readjust. So for example, when I was moving this way, I naturally felt uncomfortable, so I probably should have approached it maybe with this sort of angle, as you can see that I'm doing here. I feel like that would have been the same thing for down here to avoid any sort of issues. So I feel like what I'm doing right here is very, very important. I'm trying to find resolution to issues that I may be experiencing as a beginner. Obviously, we can see that the line weights are a bit inconsistent and there are a couple of wobbles. That has everything to do with my positioning and my posture when applying this. So therefore, I have to focus a little bit more on that and focus on how I can better that throughout the process here. So essentially what I'm sharing with you here is the logic and thought process that I use when I'm applying tattoos to help me get through them in, I guess, more professional manner, if you will. So from here, I'm going to kind of repeat that. I'm going to identify my point A and B, which is going to be right here to right here. I'm going to get comfortable. And then I'm going to commit with the taper in there, as you saw. And then I'm going to bring it around this way. Like so. Minor fluctuation there, and that's completely okay there. Now the idea behind being okay with making mistakes is because we are tattooing on fake skin. We're not doing this on any people or human skin, so therefore this is the environment to make mistakes. If there's any place to make mistakes, it would be right here on fake skin and in the tattooing workbooks that I've created. Those right there are the areas that we want to get comfortable with making mistakes. So you can see I have an obvious mistake right here where it kind of fluctuates in line weight just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go back for a little bit more ink here. What I want to do is come back this way and bring it this way. Now, as a beginner, we're going to be tempted to double up, but you can see when I doubled up, I lost the integrity of this line. So this is where we as a beginner can definitely go south. This is something that we want to try to avoid if we can. Now, from here, let's say if you're noticing that your lines are really wonky and wobbly and you're just not happy with it, there are a couple of choices that we can make. So as a beginner, we can go ahead and keep going and then try this again, and hopefully we can do better each and every time that we do it. There is a way that we can correct these lines on fake skin, so that we kind of practice that as well, kind of covering up or fixing issues or mistakes that we may be experiencing. Keep in mind, I'm not condoning any sort of tattooing on human skin. This is just specifically for fake skin. Now, let's say if I wasn't happy with how this is turning out, let's say this is a bit much for me and this sort of progression, I don't feel like it's going to have a nice clean read when I'm done. What I would like to do, or what I feel is the best choice artistically, is to take it up on the line weight and then kind of go over what I've already done. Now, I understand that we risk chewing up the skin. However, we are working on fake skin, and that's where these mistakes are happening. So I feel like we should go through the process and kind of learn what it is to double up on the line and correct issues that we don't like. So for example, I'm going to switch up to a line, a standard 7-round shader, and this is going to be a Rain 7-round shader. What I'm going to focus on this time around is my positioning, my posture, and my comfortability before I commit to the line, and I'm going to go ahead and apply the entire tattoo with the primary focus of my comfortability and my posture before I commit to the line. Here we go. And I'm also going to stay running at the same voltage. So from here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is continue the process where I'm going to identify my point A and B. So I'm going to go ahead and start right here. I'm going to bring this around this way towards me because I feel naturally more comfortable when the line is coming towards me like this. So therefore I'm going to go with that. Some people feel more comfortable when the line's being pulled away. To each their own. That's going to be artistic preference, 110% your choice. So I get an idea of what it feels like as well to kind of overwork skin here. As I know that I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to loop this around this way. And then I'm going to bring this back because this was the real problem area right here. And then I'm going to kind of just connect it all the way around with a taper out into the existing area like so. So you can see that making the line weights a little bit heavier does in fact clear up some of the mistakes that we were making. So if you find yourself in a rut and you're making those mistakes early on after a few lines, try to go up a line weight and see what happens. If you can't do that, then just kind of stick it out, go through the motions. Luckily it's on fake skin, and then come back on the next round with different priorities different ways to go about applying this to avoid those issues that you experience. I have that line right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue working the rest of the design with this new line weight here. And again, but with my priority of my position and my posture, my comfortability each and every step of the way. That's the priority. So I'm going to go ahead and begin up here, identify my point A and B. I'm going to go ahead and bring this around here. I want to give the needle enough time to do its thing before I move on to the next part. That's how I'm going to get full saturation. There we go. And then from here, I'm going to continue adding this area over here because I feel like that's close to me. Naturally, if I finish this area, I don't have to worry about losing that within the stencil. So therefore, I could have a less stressful process of applying the rest of the design. So from here, I'm going to begin with these little guys right here. Just going to do some little dashes with a taper out. I'm going to go ahead and apply these circles here. And then I can do the outer edge. If you felt like you should do the outer edge first and then the inner circles, then artistically that's what you feel like you should do, and I encourage you to make those choices. From here, I'm going to go ahead and just repeat that, but with the outer edge. I want to go back for more ink to make sure I have enough ink to complete this here. So naturally, I'm going to be a little bit more comfortable this way for this side. So I'm going to taper in right here, and I'm going to bring this around this way. Like so. Then we're going to bring it around. And I feel like I may be comfortable the entire pull here. And there we go. I'm going to repeat that process with the remaining details. So it's a pretty straightforward process here. So you can see now I can move in these areas without worrying about losing this part of the design, which is exactly what I want. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and do this part right here. If you notice, I'm just using the tip of the needle. I'm not riding the tube or anything like that. Notice how I haven't mentioned anything about riding the tube, as I won't really encourage that sort of technique. I feel like it may be better just to be able to control our depth of the needle before we begin tattooing on human skin. So I'm going to bring this around this way. Like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat this. So you can see these eyes right here are a bit closer to the area that I'm working in. So therefore I'm going to apply those. So I'm going to go ahead and go back for some more ink, and you're going to notice that I'm always going back for more ink to make sure I have that flow right there. Taper out like so. And then I'm going to repeat that. You can see right here just a minor fluctuation. Really should have just left it alone, but I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to tattoos, and I try to do as best I can there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the next eye right here. I'm going to start from one side. So I'm going to start from the left side. And then I'm going to make my way all the way around over here. Like so. And then I'm going to begin adding the rest here. So what I want to do for this part, since it's pretty much half of the circle, is I want to prioritize myself in a manner that I'm comfortable with. So therefore I'm going to kind of move around until I've figured out a motion that I am naturally comfortable with. And I'm going to go ahead and try it from here because it does feel naturally comfortable here. And then I'm going to bring this way as best I can. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and dab away, and notice how when I was applying this tattoo, I wasn't really wiping or doing anything like that. I was essentially dabbing the entire way through. The reason why I was doing that is to also help me prevent losing any stencil along the way. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and we're gonna see what we are working with here. So this is what I have right here. Notice that I wasn't really talking about technical aspects like needle depth or anything like that. I was more so talking about the actual tattooing process from beginning to end, the, I guess, ideology, the logic, the thought process that I go through when I'm applying tattoos and why. That's the reasoning, and that's basically the reasons why and the ways that I would go about applying this tattoo, and for the reasons that I mentioned in the video here. The idea behind it is I'm making the choices in a manner that's going to benefit my workflow, not take away. I'm going back for ink, and even when I go back for ink, I'm watching how deep I go within the dip, so that way I don't get too much ink to prevent pulling. Even when I'm positioning myself, I'm thinking about which way feels more comfortable and natural to me before I apply the line. The reason is because I want to apply the cleanest results. If I feel natural and comfortable, that's when I can do so. So all of these choices I feel that we're making throughout the tattooing process, I feel we should kind of take our time with them and make the best possible choice that's best for each and every artist. The choices that I'm making are definitely going to vary versus the choices that you may need to make on your end. So kind of take what you want from this video and leave what you don't. Take what is going to help better your workflow, help better your tattooing. Another thing is, if we take a look, switching to a heavier line weight did result in a better read of the design. When I started off, you can see that it was really rough right here in this area. I wasn't prioritizing my comfortability or my posture. I wasn't focused on what I should be, therefore the results showed. But you can see when I switched to a different line weight and started prioritizing those smaller variables and details, you can see that I started yielding better results, and the rest of the tattoo went off without a breeze. So again, I encourage you, when you are tattooing, to really take your time, prioritize your posture and your comfortability each and every step of the way, so that way you can produce the best results that you can produce. As a beginner, we kind of want to stay away from shading, especially if we have not got lining on command down yet, which means every time we're able to line and produce a steady, consistent, solid, saturated results. Each and every time we need to, it doesn't matter with what needle we choose, from a 3-round liner all the way up to 111 round shader. So once you get lining to that point, I feel like then as a beginner, we can move on to shading. I feel like that's probably the best and healthiest approach when it comes to a beginner and progression. Master lining, really get it down before you continue on to shading. I kind of feel like when we haven't mastered lining and the fundamentals and we move on to shading, that's when we tend to experience really patchy, blotchy results. That's when a lot of damage and overworking comes in as well. So I feel like being patient with the process, mastering lining, moving on to shading is the best and healthiest way to go about it. Since I am demonstrating from beginning to end here, I kind of want to touch base on the shading aspect as well. This is going to be a smaller design. As you can see, my thumb pretty much covers it up. So I need to be really accurate with my deposits. I can't do that with a mag of any sort. For me personally, I'm not comfortable going back to picking the gear that we are comfortable using. I'm just not comfortable using a mag for this small of an area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 3-round liner, something that I can be really accurate with. I know that that may sound counterproductive or maybe even, contradicting using a round liner to shade. However, me as the artist, I'm comfortable using round liners to apply stipple shading. This is my favorite type of shading. It's actually my go-to. Again, I can't exhaust that, going back to picking the gear and needles that are right for you. So I'm going to also drop my voltage down to around 5.5 volts, 5 volts, to apply this shading here. And again, this is going to be a CNC 3-round liner, just because I need to be super accurate with my deposits. I'm going to go ahead and grab some ink the same way that I was earlier, as you can see. Now I don't have to worry about losing the stencil, so therefore I can be a little bit more free from here on out, and I'm going to focus on the shading placement. When I am going to apply the shading, I'm just going to apply the shading on one side of the design and then kind of just shade this way, giving it a little shaded effect. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from here, and then I'm just going to simply start from the lines that are existing and use a steady motion of whips here, like so, to apply shading in this area. And I feel like it's important to keep them as consistent as we can, so that way we get a clean, smooth read. You also want to make sure that you have adequate ink flow, so that way when you're depositing the ink, each and every time you touch down, it's depositing there. So as you can see, I'm just very, very, very lightly going over this area. Like so. I'm going to go ahead and apply an ointment there to really wipe away and see the tone that I'm working with here. And then I'm going to kind of repeat that. I want to do maybe one more layer here of shading, and then I'm going to move on. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back for some more ink, and I'm going to continue over here, doing essentially the same thing. And I want to also match up the tones as close as I can. So this is a part of the process. And keep in mind, the bigger the design's going to get, the longer it's going to take. You get the idea. Not every design is also going to be this way. Some designs may just consist of shading, but some of these fundamentals that I am talking about in terms of like where I'm going to be starting and ending, that's still definitely going to apply. It doesn't matter what style of tattoo I'm doing. In terms of stippling as well, in terms on a technical front, I'm going to be doing the stipple shading the same way technically, even on a bigger design. So you can see I have some shading going on right there, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and do that on this side and up here. So I'm going to go back for some more ink here, and then I'm going to kind of repeat that here. So as you can see, just using whip motion, starting from the already existing line here, and I'm placing down the first tone here. And then I'm going to bring this way like so. I'm going to dab like so, and then I'm going to remove the excess ink to see the tone that I'm working with. I'm going to go ahead and go back for some more ink, and you can kind of see that this is a repetitive process that we just have to be mindful of. Be, calm, I feel, cool and collected, and we will make better choices that are going to start yielding us better results. And I felt like that's why I should make this video, kind of let you know the ideology, the thought process that I go through when I'm applying a tattoo from start to finish. You really want to develop a healthy workflow early on and get comfortable with a certain workflow and a certain pace. So as you can see, that looks nice right there. I'm actually going to continue on to the rest up here, and then we can kind of call it a day with this design. And I feel like that really does get my points across. If there's anything to take from this video, it would be to prioritize your comfortability. Find a good, healthy pace that you are comfortable with. Use gear that you are comfortable with. And take your time. That's looking fantastic there. And then over here, I can just do a little bit of shading right here, for example. I think that I can go over that one more time so you can see that I'm also visually paying attention to the results that I'm getting, and that's going to determine my next choice. And I'm doing this in a paceful manner. I'm not applying, wiping, and endlessly doing that. I'm actually paying attention to all the results that I'm getting real time each and every time I apply any ink in there. I'm just going to go ahead and do one more layer here. I'm going to dab the excess, wipe away, And that is essentially what I am working with right there. And from here, I'm happy with these results. I feel like even with a little bit of shading, it did make it pop a little bit more. Overall, I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up so that we can take a top look at it and see what we're working with. Here we are at a top view. These are the final results that I got for this demonstration here. Considering all of the hiccups that I experienced from the wobbles of the lines, from the line weight, needle depth inconsistencies, the uncomfortable posture and positioning, I feel like the final design reads nice and clean. You can see when we switched over to a heavier line weight, we were able to clean up those lines, giving us a cleaner read. Not only that, the lines throughout the entire design also read nice, clean, solid, consistent, and saturated. So the shading as well, I think that the lining and the shading work together, which goes back to the importance of mastering lining first and then moving on to shading. If we don't apply the shading correctly, we're going to get like patchy, blotchy shading, which is only going to take away from any tattoo as opposed to complement and add to. It's important to note that I'm not by any means saying that this is a perfect tattoo. I'm not by any means saying that this is how we go about tattooing or the only way to tattoo. This is just simply the logic, the thought process, the ideology behind me when I go about applying a tattoo. Now that I'm done with the actual technical application side of the tattooing process, from here I can take a break and really take a good look at this. You may want to take some pictures, or you can carry this with you, either or. You want to take a look at it and see where you went wrong, see what we can do better. You can kind of see right here in this little area right here, the circles kind of lost its integrity of a circle there just a tad bit if we really pay attention to certain things. So those little variables are things that we really want to pay attention to and figure out better ways to go about fixing any issue that we should be experiencing. If you aren't able to figure out your issue, or if you're not able to resolve issues that you're experiencing, I encourage you to drop a comment down below on what you are experiencing, and I'll do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. I feel like this is a great place to conclude this video. This is how I would go about applying a tattoo from beginning to end. Take what you want, leave what you don't. I hope that you can find some useful information to immediately apply to your workflow on your end. That'll be it for this one. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this for you all. I do also have social medias under the same name as my YouTube. I have Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, all under Daniel Yuck. I would appreciate the support over there as well. With that being said, I appreciate your time and I thank you for watching. You have a great day.